public sector has diverse workforces. The challenges in managing them are often similar. In this episode of RPI Tech Connect, we discuss the nuances of public sector workforces, share tactics to boost productivity, and enhance employee engagement. This is RPI Tech Connect. Welcome back. In this segment, we're exploring the public sector, and more specifically, the unique teams that make up its workforce. From local government and education to utilities and transit authorities, each organization is distinct, yet managing these diverse workforces shares common challenges. Today, we'll discuss the unique composition of these agencies and how tools like N4WFM can help maximize team productivity and improve employee satisfaction. Joining us today, we have RPI Senior WFM Director, Randy Ellsworth, a known leader in the N4WFM space and the broader ERP community. Randy, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Great to be here. Good to see you today.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for, it's always nice having you in the Balto office. So appreciate you taking the time to hop on here. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear more about your background and maybe you could walk us through your journey, what led you to RPI.
Yeah, sure. I have been in the software industry and implementing software for, close to 35 years now. Kind of dating myself, but that's where I am. Spent about 16 years of my career at Infor, the last several managing the workforce management practice there. When I left Infor, spoke to RPI, we certainly recognized the need in the market for additional, WFM partners. Infor WFM product is on fire. So as I, met the leaders of RPI, spoke with a number of the consultants, it's pretty clear, right? We were aligned on a common goal to help customers be successful and, really just focusing on, longstanding relationships and successful outcomes. So something that's near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. That's fantastic, Randy. Thanks for walking us through that there. I know we're happy to have you here at RPI. But, to pivot here to today's topic of the public sector, I want to understand what makes these workforces so unique and distinct. What are the factors that make that so?
Yeah, sure. So when you talk public sector, there's a lot of different entities, right? Whether that's, city, county, state government, and within there, various agencies and departments that are very diverse, right? You may have a school system, you may have parks and rec, you may have, police and fire, right? All with their unique challenges and complexities. So, within a school system, you have folks with, various roles, more than one job, right? A school teacher may be a coach or a bus driver, and, they're paid on a different scale, different ways to pay people. Yet, it all ideally is in, one system to be able to capture that and automate that time. So, you're addressing, whatever the challenge is, within that department, right? You look at maybe a mental health facility within, public sector, it's essentially a hospital, right? So you have all of the uniquenesses of, nursing, scheduling within that, skills and credentials that are required for those particular jobs. And of course, overarching, you have, budget constraints within public sector, right? You may need to manage to a budget, certainly do. You have regulatory compliance in terms of how you may schedule, Fair Labor Scheduling Act. You have various ways that are mandated that you have to pay. And then you get into, if you don't, you're dealing with labor relations, right? So a lot of times there's union contracts or pay contracts that govern this type of stuff. So it's very nuanced within those departments. And, N4WFM is flexible enough to handle, those different scenarios across many different entities, if you will.
Yeah, so thanks for providing the context there. And you kind of alluded to my next question here, which is that, with all these layers and complexities and nuances to the workforces that make up the public sector, how exactly do organizations go about managing those employees, the ones who wear multiple hats? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, right. So oftentimes it's manual, right? If you don't have a system, it is the various managers managing the schedule and the people and, the requirements of that job. It's, HR and payroll that are looking at those various, time cards, if you will, and sorting out, how they get paid. Looking back, sometimes it's documented, sometimes it's not, but clearly it's challenging and very labor intensive. Every pay cycle, right? Whether that's every 2 weeks or whatever, they are in there having to sort out what was coded and how those folks get paid. And if they don't get it right, they're opening themselves up to litigation. Right?
Yeah, pay is a serious thing too, right? You don't want to be making mistakes there.
No,
in fact,
for sure.
Just hearing that it's a manual process to begin with is like, man, that just sounds like an invitation for for trouble, right?
Yeah. They also they may have various disparate systems, right, that they're using, multiple scheduling systems, multiple time systems. Sometimes, say in a corrections facility, right, you can't have a phone to log your time. You need time clocks or whatever. So the various inputs, if you will, and the various ways that people capture their time ultimately, ideally lead into a single system, right, that captures all of that stuff. Get rid of the disparate systems, integration with your HR systems and other various systems, proper, tracking and reporting, and alerts, right? So as you move into a modern WFM, you're taking out that margin of error, right, when you're doing manual entries and really putting it all in the system for it to calculate, to alert you if there's a problem, and, for reporting and compliance after the fact. Right?
Cool. Yeah. So what it sounds like I'm hearing then is that there's a very desirable need for a tool like WFM in the public sector, because without it, you're kind of relying on these different systems and a lot of manual work and cross-referencing and things like that. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Big challenge for sure.
So then to that end, maybe we could talk a little bit now about how and why Infor WFM is such a good solution for kind of solving these needs. Could you share some of the core capabilities and functionality of that software?
Yeah, sure. So the Infor WFM product is very mature, very robust. It's highly configurable. It's extendable if you need to. Extensions meaning something that's outside the standard product. I'll steer away from the word customization because, extensions are allowed in the multi-tenant framework. They are made to be resilient, and you don't have to worry about them during upgrades, where customization kind of puts you on a path of no return, right? So just want to be clear there. Extendability is something that's very configurable and that works within the multi-tenant environment, right? So the rules engine is very robust for time and attendance, for, accruals, balances, that type of thing. And, as you mentioned earlier, pay, right? That is near and dear to people's hearts. Automating that with Infor WFM, it is very flexible. It will handle anything from, schools to police to fire to parks and rec to hospitals, right? Within, these various entities. So,
just a couple things it does.
Yeah, right. And, some of the benefits, right, from an end user standpoint, the interface, like the clock interface, pretty simple. People punch in and out, right? You clock in, you clock out. And the rules engine behind the scenes is what really calculates their pay and ensures that that is all accurate. They're getting all the, shift differentials or premiums or, pay based on various job codes or, whatever it is. The system, keeps track of that, right? It should be easy to use. Infor has spent a lot of time working on the UI, improving the mobile functionality, and really making it user friendly from a manager perspective, right? Only having to approve exceptions, assuming your organization, can allows that to happen. A manager can just look at exceptions rather than improving, everyone's timesheet on their team, right? So it hones in on that. It gives them alerts, various capabilities to understand, hey, if I make this swap with this person, am I going to be approaching overtime? Is that going to impact my budget if I make this change, right? So having the tools available for a manager to both visibility and then the warnings to tell you when you're kind of, out of bounds, if you will, right?
Yeah, thank you. No, that was a ton of great background there. And you said a lot of things that I'd like to address now. I guess the first is that I appreciate you making the distinction clear between the extendability and the customizable. Is that right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, customization historically is a bad word, right? With a software deployment, you don't want to get into a custom situation where when you take a patch, right? This is multi-tenant, so you're getting feature releases on a regular basis. If you go down the path of writing custom code, you are kind of stuck, and you have to worry about that every time, right? Where the Infor WFM framework through scripting, right, with this extensibility, you don't have to worry about that, right? The application stays the same. The only thing you really need to be concerned with is, the extension itself, and that is very manageable within the system.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to hear. And for those of you listening in, to understand the difference between those two adjectives for software is key here, I think. So appreciate that. And the other thing you mentioned there that I think is super important to kind of explore further is that, they've made it easy to use and it's intuitive. And I think that's twofold there. The first is that when a system is easy to use, I feel it's going to help with adoption. If you're implementing this new software, it's going to probably facilitate better engagement. But the second thing, and the more important thing I think here, is that this is background that I've heard from a number of guests on the podcast now, and that is that Infor has been purposefully and actively taking the feedback of users to enhance the software, to make it better, to make it easier for end users to use. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, how have you seen WFM evolve over time? Like, I feel like there's been like a rebrand or something that happened in that space. Coming from Infor, what's the story? How did the product get to where it is today, and what played a role there?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, the product is very robust. A lot of the improvements in the application have been around usability. I mentioned, the mobile application. There's a self-service portal that is part of that. So the look and feel, the information on the screen is, it adapts to the screen. So regardless of what device you use, it is the same features, functions, on a phone, on a tablet, on a laptop. So that is a familiar space for users to come in and, do whatever they're doing, right? Request time off, to enter their time, to trade shifts, whatever is happening there. Also, and, if you know Infor, they are going down a path of very industry specific functionality, right? So as over the years, as this product has evolved, it's been through a lot of input from customers, right? And engagement. And this is not, typical, I will say, from, other large software companies. You don't get that same engagement. Infor is very good about connecting with their partners, with their customers, understanding what the needs are, the nuances, the very specific parts of their business that need that little piece to make it work for them, right? Maybe they're taking, ideas from a best of breed, but that's what makes that software special to them, right? Infor will take that, understand the requirements, put it in the standard product, and release that for the customer and for everyone to use. So it's those those incremental improvements, and some of them are, more than just incrementals. They're, significant, but those incremental improvements over time that has really, allowed the product to evolve and remain very flexible, yet get to those industry specific items that are really needed.
Yeah, it's super cool to hear that they're actively soliciting, commentary and wants from different members of the community, be it partners or organizations from specific industries like the public sector.
Yep. And it's not just noise. They are doing it day in and day out. They're doing it. And it's really good to see. It's great collaboration.
Awesome. So we've talked about, the evolution of the product and what it's capable of, but now I kind of want to pivot and talk about how those, features and functionality can really benefit, public sector organizations. And so maybe we could talk about how it improves efficiency and maybe like productivity. What kind of like, maybe this is something you've actually seen firsthand, with an organization who implemented Infor WFM and as a result saw exponential change in the way that they, manage their teams.
Yeah, sure. And I think we need to look at it from a couple different perspectives, right? From a time and attendance perspective, you really want, and need to pay people very accurately, right? So, I may be stating the obvious there, but it's harder than it sounds in a manual environment, right? It's very labor intensive. So as we see folks moving from maybe, paper or disparate systems into a consolidated, integrated application, that efficiency comes from time and attendance kind of on the back end, in terms of paying accurately and automating everything there. But also as you take a step back, I mentioned earlier around, regulatory compliance, right, in labor relations. So it kind of takes that element out. If you configure it properly, it pays properly, that's no longer a discussion, and it's auditable, right? So from a compliance standpoint, you can look back, see what was done, prove that the person got a meal break or, whatever whatever the law is, you can prove that, right? There's various reporting, both, real-time reporting in terms of, managers being able to understand where their staff is, who's early, who's late, who showed up, who didn't. And then, the visibility, to, changes that are happening throughout the day, in their workforce. If you expand out a little bit from there, it's analytics, right? It's trending and, seeing which departments are under or over budget and, at a higher level, maybe looking at the entire team and what that looks like. So, from real-time reporting to analytics, there's a lot of deep functionality in there. And then from a scheduling perspective, that's very nuanced, and it depends on the organization. It depends on the people. It depends on the work and the requirements. So having a system that gives you the visibility, what your demand is, how much of that demand you've filled, and then where do I get my people? How do I find these other people, right? Is it a call list? Is it is it scratched out on a piece of paper, or do you have a system that you can pull up and say, hey, this is the job I have. This is the shift that's open. And these are the folks that are not currently working that have the credentials, the skills, whatever that is, to fit that job. And then the ease to ping them, right? To get a notification on the application that, there is a shift available. We need your help there. The user just goes in, accepts that thing. And then, the manager has the ability to approve it or not, right? So just that ease to be able to understand your staff and use the system to help identify them and get them in the right place at the right time.
You gotta think that's saving so much like back and forth time too, instead of like having to send out an email and say, we need to fill this shift on X date at this time and having to wait for someone to reply. It's like, no, I can just see right off the bat who's available and like you said, who's credentialed and and who also isn't going to go into overtime or something and just make that happen almost behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Whereas that used to be someone's like full-time job, is probably like making sure things are covered and there's no gaps in the schedule.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But so something I want to explore there is that, Infor WFM sounds like a bag of magic tricks. It can do all these different things and it's super cool. But the key there is configuration and setup. So like the software is only as good as it's configured to be. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. When you get into this, it's important to have the proper knowledge to get the system implemented, right? And that is a combination of product and how that product is to be configured or used, what the capabilities are, but also understanding the industries, obviously. So as you go in there, as a consulting organization, we're looking at the people, we're looking at the process, we're looking at the technology, and melding them into something that is going to produce, the right outcome, right? Successful outcome is a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's efficiency, it's paying people accurately, and it's giving, the end users, the managers and the executives, the tools and the visibility, they need to really do their jobs, right? And do it well, efficiently.
Yeah. And so best practices for setting up the software. Do you have any? Where do you, is there, go ahead.
Yeah, we have lots of that. Well, it's a process, right? So I would say the approach, we have a methodology, right, within RPI, and the approach to understanding the requirements, current state, future state, and how that maps to the application. We've put a lot of time into developing the methodology and really refining a prescriptive approach to this is the best way to handle time and attendance and how we gather and implement those requirements. And this is how we understand scheduling and the other various aspects around workforce management and how that is best implemented, right? And they are different, right? Time and attendance, very black and white. Scheduling, very gray and and nuanced. And that is just a fact of life. It's not the software, right? It is the business, and it is how to map that and use that in the software. And when you have a flexible application like Infor WFM, that makes our job, a bit easier. There are options, and those options are discussed in detail, and we get into the nitty gritty. And then we, for scheduling, we come back, we prototype it, we show them, we let folks get hands on with it. We let them shoot holes in it, and then we go back and, we go back and refine it, right? That's what it takes. So, and again, the goal is to automate as much as we can and to make, these folks' life easier. This application, we try to set it up so it's the least amount of work to use as possible, right? If you think about somebody that their day job is not necessarily scheduling people, that's a necessary evil, right? So the easier we can make that through our prescriptive approach, the better they're going to be on the other side, and the less time they have to spend in the application, the more time they can spend, doing their real work and working with the people that are doing their jobs. Right?
So it sounds like then one of the first places to start with this software then is to understand the requirements and the details of the organization's workforce, how they work, how they operate, and then kind of working backwards from that and developing the software, not developing, or maybe configuring the software to support them.
Yeah. We start with current state requirements. Everyone has pain points. Doesn't matter where they're coming from, right? They have pain points. We want to understand the process. We want to understand your pain, and we want to understand your kind of wants and desires, right? You need to keep that in check as you go through a project. There is scope containment that needs to be done. You don't necessarily want to do it all at once. Maybe you do, but there's various approaches there. So as we get into these implementations, we guide the customer on the best approach there, give options, and then make recommendations based on those options, right? Based on the business needs. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have to say we are getting close to time now. I appreciate you hanging out and spending this time with us and exploring WFM this afternoon. But before we wrap up, I'd like to ask my guest this final question, and it's, if you could offer today's audience one piece of advice based on today's conversation, what would it be?
Yeah, sure. I think I would say it's kind of a complexity challenge, right? When we've gone into scenarios where we're demoing the application, Infor does the demos of the application. We as a partner would support that. One of the questions that's asked in prep for those demos is, give me your biggest challenges, give me your most complex scenarios, and I want to show you how the Infor application will solve those problems, right? So I think that is a great challenge if you have complexities, needs that are not being met, or you think there's improvements that can be done. I'm sure there are. Reach out, talk to us, talk to Infor, and have that conversation of your most complex needs. And I just call it the complexity challenge because they literally ask in those prep calls, give me your toughest stuff, and we're going to show you how we're going to.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's the first takeaway there that's been of that type. Like, think of your most complicated thing, write it down, think about how it could be, how you want it to be handled, and bring it to us.
Right.
You're challenging them to raising the stakes here. It's like, show me your worst and we can solve it.
Exactly. I just love it because, a lot of it is table stakes, right? But when you get into the real meat of it, the devil's in the details with this space and within this application. So it does take a lot of, detailed discussions and conversations to get those nuances out and to make sure that the requirements are nailed. Infor asking for that in prep for the demo and then turning around in a week or so, whatever it is, right, when the demo's scheduled, to show how we solve that. I just think that's a great approach. And I love it.
I do too.
Yeah. This application is, I'll say it can do almost anything, right? And if it can't, hey, we have the ability to extend, and we have a great team at Infor. The product management and development team there are very interested in just continuing to improve this product and making it better for the market.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Randy. For those of you listening in, thanks for hanging out with us today. For more resources on WFM in the public sector, feel free to email us at podcast@rpic.com. With over 50 years of experience delivering successful outcomes for city, county, and state governments, we're here to help, and we'd be happy to send you some additional content. This is RPI Tech Connect, and I'm Chris Airy. We'll see you next time.
Chris, thanks for having me today. We have a great team. We would love to hear from folks out there that have the needs.